Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to do something different. We're going to look at World War I. So sit back, grab some popcorn, and get ready, because this will be one whirlwind of a video. World War I, also known as the Great War, or the War to End All Wars, was a global conflict that lasted from 1914 to 1918. It was one of the deadliest wars in history, involving all of the great powers and resulting in the deaths of over 16 million people. The war was fought between two opposing alliances, the Triple Entente, which included France, Russia, and Britain, and the Triple Alliance, which included Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Although those three countries are the central powers, the origins of the war can be traced back to the early 20th century, when Europe was characterized by a complex web of alliances and rivalries among the great powers. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914 by a Serbian nationalist served as the immediate trigger for the conflict. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28, 1914, and quickly began its invasion. Soon, the other European powers were drawn into the conflict as a result of their alliance obligations. Within a month, the major powers were committed to the war effort. One of the key features of World War I was the emergence of new military technologies that had a profound impact on the nature of warfare. For example, machine guns, tanks, and poison gas were used extensively, leading to a stalemate on the Western Front. The war also saw the introduction of conscription or compulsory military service, which meant that millions of men were pulled from civilian life to serve in the armed forces. This led to a significant loss of manpower for many countries, especially those who entered the war later, such as the United States. As the war dragged on, the conflict became increasingly brutal and characterized by horrific conditions. Soldiers faced not only enemy fire, but also disease, starvation, and psychological trauma. The use of trench warfare, particularly on the Western Front, created a system of elaborate and often muddy fortifications that became a breeding ground for disease and decay. Soldiers living in these trenches faced a constant threat of death from disease, injury, or exposure to the elements. Another important aspect of World War I was the role of the colonial empires in the conflict. Many of the European powers had vast colonial holdings around the world, and the war soon became a global conflict involving troops from Africa, Asia, and Oceania. For example, Japanese forces captured German colonies in the Pacific, while British troops fought against Boer forces in South Africa. As the war reached its climax in 1917 and 1918, several significant events occurred that ultimately led to the collapse of the Central Powers. One of these events was the entry of the United States into the war. Until then, the conflict had largely been confined to Europe, and the United States had maintained a policy of neutrality. However, several factors, including the sinking of the Lusitania, unrestricted submarine warfare, and the Zimmermann telegram, led to growing public support for intervention. On April 6, 1917, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson declared war on Germany, citing the need to defend democracy and make the world safe for democracy. The entry of the U.S. into the war provided a much-needed boost to the Allied cause, both in terms of military support and financial resources. Another crucial development was the Russian Revolution of 1917, which resulted in the overthrow of the Tsarist regime and the establishment of a communist government under the leadership of Vladimir Lenin. Russia's involvement in World War I had been significant, but the revolution led to the withdrawal of Russia from the conflict. This had a major impact on the war, as it relieved pressure on Germany in the east and allowed German troops to be redeployed to the Western Front. In the final analysis, the combination of internal pressures, external conflicts, and strategic blunders led to the collapse of the Central Powers. By late 1918, the German army was exhausted and demoralized, and the other Central Powers were on the verge of collapse. On November 11, 1918, an armistice was signed between the Allies and Germany, bringing an end to the conflict. The Treaty of Versailles, which was signed in 1919, officially ended the state of war between the belligerents and imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including territorial losses, disarmament, and financial reparations. The treaty also established the League of Nations, an international organization created with the goal of preventing future wars. In terms of the legacy of World War I, it had a profound impact on the 20th century and beyond. The war led to the collapse of several empires, including the Russian, Ottoman, and Austro-Hungarian. It also contributed to the rise of totalitarian regimes in Europe in the interwar period. Additionally, World War I is considered a pivotal moment in the transition from the Edwardian era to the modern age. The war shattered the prevailing sense of optimism and progress, and ushered in an era of disillusionment and uncertainty. The art, literature, and culture of the post-war period reflected this shift in perspective. Some of the most famous battles of World War I include the Battle of the Marne, the Battle of Verdun, the Battle of the Somme, the Battle of Passchendaele, and the Battle of Meuse. The outcome of these battles had a significant impact on the course of the war and resulted in heavy casualties on both sides. In conclusion, World War I was a global conflict that had a profound impact on the 20th century and beyond. The war involved the major powers of the time and resulted in the deaths of over 16 million people. The conflict was marked by the use of new military technologies, the horrors of trench warfare, and the involvement of colonial troops. The entry of the United States into the war and the Russian Revolution of 1917 were key turning points that led to the collapse of the Central Powers. The Treaty of Versailles officially ended the war and imposed harsh penalties on Germany. World War I had a lasting legacy, contributing to the rise of totalitarian regimes and ushering in an era of disillusionment and uncertainty. Some of the most famous battles of the war include the Battle of the Marne, the Battle of Verdun, the Battle of the Somme, the Battle of Passchendaele, and the Battle of Meuse. Overall, World War I was a pivotal event in history that shaped the course of the 20th century. So there you have it, a whirlwind tour through World War I. If you want more videos like this, let me know in the comments below. And if you want to learn more about World War II, stay tuned for more content. Thanks for watching and see you next time.